In the Go Battle League, there are a wide variety of different skill gaps that can separate a newer player from someone who competes at the absolute top of the world. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the most important skill gaps in this game, and that is the power of adjustment. With Go Battle League being a game of blind threes, when a battle starts, you have no idea of knowing what your opponent has in the back, and therefore, you may potentially make some plays that, in hindsight, can actually lead to losing the game. However, what good players have the ability to do is adjust their play pattern. If they see that same team the next time, make the game-winning adjustment to turn that from a loss into a win. This is something that I notice among newer players and players who are struggling to get out of an elo range, is a lot of the times they'll be playing the same teams again and again, and they'll just play it the exact same way and end up losing. There's an old saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, today I'm going to be showcasing several examples of where trainers were able to make adjustments after losing game 1 to winning game 2 in the mirror match, so that way you can identify those kinds of scenarios in your own gameplay. Let's take a look at the first matchup. This matchup features a Clodsire leading into an Ice Fang Shadow Hippowdon with Swampert and Flygon in the back, while the opponent has Acid Credilli and their own Swampert. So right off the bat, this is a nightmare matchup for the Clodsire player. Clodsire gets crushed by Ice Fang Hippowdon, but the Flygon in the back has an even worse matchup, so this team is ABA weak to the Hippowdon. Add in the fact that the opposing Swampert has really strong neutral play into the entire top team, and Acid Credilli can hit for big damage with Grass Knots onto the backline. This looks like a very difficult matchup for the top team. So let's move into game number 1, and let's take a look at how this matchup played out. For this first game, Clodsire is going to try staying in. This is not a good matchup for Clodsire, but Flygon would be so much worse into the Hippowdon. So Clodsire is clearly going to try and neutralize the Hippowdon as much as possible, try and get rid of the rest of Hippowdon after soft losing the matchup with Swampert, and then hopefully the idea is Flygon will be able to sweep in the endgame. We will see Clodsire put up a shield on the Scorching Sands. The Earthquake landing means that, honestly, even a Sludge Bomb threatens a KO onto the very low health Shadow Hippowdon. Hippowdon will invest a shield. Hippowdon will not get a farm down here. Hippowdon will fire off a last second charge attack, and Clodsire is just going to choose to let this go. Hippowdon does KO with the Weather Ball. In comes Swampert, and there's going to be a pivot out into Acid Credilli. So the opponent realizes it's highly likely that there's something else in the back weak to ice, so they end up saving the Hippowdon. Hydro Cannon lands onto Credilli, in comes Flygon, and the opponent will fire off their charge attack immediately. Flygon can always survive any one move. It is going to be the Grass Knot. While that does inflict some serious damage, at the very least, it does do less damage there than double super effective onto a Swampert. Flygon will be firing off this Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is going to land, picking up the knockout. The opponent still obviously has the Hippowdon. Hippowdon gets the farm down. Swampert gets brought onto the field. The opponent does have a charge attack loaded, but it's not enough for the Scorching Sands. It's only a Weather Ball. So Swampert is able to survive, but in the back, it's an opposing Swampert, and this game is over. The reason the game is over is because the opponent can survive a Hydro Cannon, whereas our battler here cannot. So the opponent can safely no shield, and we will see that battle conceded, as there's just no way to win the match. Now that we've seen that matchup play out, let's talk about what just happened. Obviously, it's a very negative matchup for the Clodsire team, but staying in proved to be just not the move whatsoever. The Clodsire was able to get the Hippowdon low, but the Hippowdon wisely pivoted out and was able to save a few key Ice Fangs to snipe down the Flygon later in the game, making it checkmate, as Swampert, having already taken damage from dealing with the other Pokemon on the team, had no ability to win the mirror match. Obviously, switching Flygon into an Ice Fang Hippowdon, never going to be an option either. And there's not really an ability to catch out of that lead matchup either, as this team does not have a resistance to Scorching Sands. So Scorching Sands landing on anything would still be a net positive for the team on the bottom. So when options are limited, you kind of have to turn to the last remaining option, and that is safe switching Swampert. The opponent does not have a response to a Swampert up energy. Their own Swampert would lose that matchup, and they have Acid Credilli. So now that we've seen the matchup play out the first way as a loss, let's see the adjustment. So now it's going to be the exact same teams. Again, a Go Battle League game. Bad lead. Clodsire into Ice Fang Hippowdon. Immediate save switch into Swampert. Opponent responds with Credilli, but not only is Credilli down on energy, but the opponent is running Acid. That's something we identified from the last game, and that means they are very weak to a Swampert up energy. Swampert is able to land that Hydro Cannon, and it looks like the opponent can get two-shot by Hydros here. Swampert is going to commit the shield on the Grass Knot. Even if they went for a Rock Tomb, the Credilli's taken enough damage that Hydro should still be lethal. Hydro Cannon launched at the Credilli is going to be shielded. Swampert is going to win charge attack priority over that Credilli, and this game has completely flipped on its head. The interesting aspect of this game is that the Swampert has to be protected at all costs, because this is not a play for switch advantage, but rather this is a play for just trying to get as much value out of Swampert as humanly possible. The opponent is going to bring in their own Swampert. Swampert is going to bank back-to-back Hydro Cannons and send in the Flygon. So the opponent was able to successfully save that Credilli. But now the Flygon is more than happy to absorb energy from the Swampert. Swampert will get outpaced here, and that means that this Dragon Claw will land. While non-lethal, it will inflict some serious damage. Opponent throws instantly to not let that next Dragon Tail register. This is a bit of a turning point in the match. Swampert's energy is needed for the Credilli and for the Hippowdon, so Clodsire is going to be the choice. It seems a little odd to bring Clodsire into a Swampert, but this is actually the winning play. Clodsire is going to be hit with the Hydro Cannon. Opponent, are they going to save the Swampert? Yes, in comes Hippowdon. And look at all this energy on the Swampert. Swampert gets to fire off Hydro Cannon. That connects for massive damage. Hippowdon gets farmed all the way down. And now, Swampert doesn't really care about where the Hydro Cannon lands, because even if the opponent brings in the Swampert, Credilli has no ability to farm down. They are on Acid. So the opponent brings in the Swampert to get KO'd by the Hydro Cannon, but they have no ability to farm down before Swampert makes a move. That forces them to throw energy here, and this, of course, means they do not have a charge attack loaded. They were forced to burn energy on a Rock Tomb, and that means Clodsire with the loaded Earthquake will take the win. It's amazing how the exact same matchup, the exact same Pokemon, played a different way, has such an incredibly, drastically different outcome. I think these two battles are some of the best possible examples of how an adjustment can make a game that feels completely unwinnable the first time you play it suddenly feel a lot more winnable. And that's why it can be very helpful to notice if you're playing the same team multiple times, you can kind of keep an eye out for it. Like if you see Hippowdon, if it's always Acid, Credilli, and Swampert in the back, and it's always a tough team, you can try something different the next time you encounter it to see if there's a more favorable outcome. On paper, this matchup looks impossible. Hard ABA weak to Ice Fang with a Flygon as the normal safe swap means this game should always be a loss, but the adjustment and strategy proves to be everything, as it takes it from a game where it really wasn't close, it was pretty much a blowout loss, into a pretty convincing win. Let's now move into game number 2, also from the Sunshine Cup. Here are the teams. This matchup features the same top team, Clodsire, Swampert, and Flygon, but a very different opposing team. This team is Furret, Watergun Quagsire, and Wigglytuff, a team designed around forcing alignment with Furret, and then the Watergun Quagsire plus Wigglytuff core is unbreakable unless you have a Ferrothorn or a Shadow Victory Bell, which the top team has neither. The really tricky thing about this matchup is both of the back two Pokemon lose in the 2-shield to Wigglytuff. So Wigglytuff, as long as 2 shields are saved for it and the Clodsire has been neutralized, can effectively sweep. So let's take a look at the first matchup between these two teams. For this game, Clodsire, we know it's going to be led into the Furret. Furret does have the ability to win the 2-shield, but typically Wigglytuff players like to try and save shields. So Furret is just going to go straight for the Trailblaze, and for this particular trainer, they are going to play out the Zeros with Furret. A very high rank Furret can survive 2 Sludge Bombs plus the Poison Stings and win the Zeros. So typically Clodsire will need a Sludge Bomb plus an Earthquake, but after seeing that Sludge Bomb land, it's clear this opponent does not run a high rank Furret, so double Sludge Bomb is possible. Opponent fires off the boosted Swift, Clodsire is going to farm up and fire off the Sludge Bomb. At this point, the back Pokemon are still unknown. So switch advantage here, which is 1, is pretty nice. Opponent obviously can't bring in the Wigglytuff, so they're going to bring out their Quagsire. Quagsire goes for the farm down, denying the Earthquake with the water guns, and now this is trouble. In comes the Flygon. Flygon immediately put under pressure from an Aqua Tail, and from here, unfortunately, this is going to be a 2-shield Wigglytuff completely sweeping this game. Flygon will fire off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw into the Quagsire does not get shielded. In the back is Wigglytuff, and our battler just gives up, staying in with the Flygon. As you can tell, this battler is me. The moment I saw the Wigglytuff, I knew the game was over, because even if I switch instantly with Swampert, Swampert does not have an ability to make 3 Sludges, and even if it did, a Sludge does not one-shot this Pokemon. So unfortunately, this is just a Wigglytuff related death for Swampert. Swampert actually does get a last-second Sludge here with damage registration error, but the Wigglytuff can just shield, and that's going to be game over. Let's talk about this game and how this game was lost. Basically, Wigglytuff had 2 shields to hide behind. Swampert was not able to get to a 3rd charge attack. Swampert was able to force both shields from the Wigglytuff, but fell short, so this team has to figure out a way to get a 3rd charge attack onto that Wigglytuff. And well, considering the backline, there is a pretty straightforward solution. And that is, if you read that it's going to be this exact team, Clodsire needs to bank a Sludge Bomb and then hard pivot into the Swampert. That way, there is a 3rd charge attack that can potentially be used to KO the Wigglytuff. So now that we have that idea in mind, let's take a look at this matchup played out a second time. Let's hop into the rematch. We already know the leads, Clodsire versus Furret. Now with the goal in mind of trying to save a charge move on the Clodsire to potentially get rid of Wigglytuff later on. Furret is always going to be firing off the Trailblaze right away on 7. They need to boost up their damage as much as they possibly can. Here, I make a pretty sizable error. As the Clodsire, you should always go Sludge Bomb to test the bulk of the Furret. I just assumed it would be a good Furret, so I full sent the Earthquake, and it turns out they do not have a high rank Furret, so this very easily could have been a situation where double Sludge Bomb could have picked up the KO. Now this is a bit complicated, because Clodsire doesn't have the residual energy that it would normally have if it went double Sludge Bomb, and this will require me to go for an undercharge. So I undercharge the Sludge Bomb, farm down, and I should be able to bank a move here and then pivot into the Swampert. Quagsire is on the field, but having that move on the Clodsire, or I actually may be slightly short there, but I think I may be healthy enough to survive a charm on the Clodsire, we'll have to see, but having the threat of a move puts me in a significantly better spot than playing it out the original way. My opponent is now going to send in the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, obviously going to try and charm down, but with Swampert being able to pressure both shields with Sludge and the threat of a Sludge Bomb from the Clodsire, suddenly we feel like we have solved our puzzle from the previous game of how do we get a 3rd charge move. The answer is going to be Clodsire. Clodsire is going to get the snipe onto the Wigglytuff with the Sludge Bomb. Obviously, this game would have been much cleaner if Clodsire just threw double Sludge Bomb into the Furret, as that way Clodsire could have left with more HP and it wouldn't have come down to damage registration error. I'm going to bring in the Flygon. Unfortunately, my fast move does get denied there, but even so, Flygon should be able to Dragon Tail this down before it gets charmed down, because the Dragon Tails do still add up. Opponent realizes this, they pivot out into the Quagsire, and Quagsire is just going to get knocked out with the Dragon Claw. So Dragon Claw will pick up the KO onto the Quagsire, back in comes the Wigglytuff. It's a simultaneous knockout, but with the Swampert still alive in the back, that game is now a win. All in all, I think that being able to adjust after you play a team is one of the most important skills in the Go Battle League, and it can really separate players who are more experienced in the game from players who are newer. So that's part of why I wanted to put together a video like this, just to demonstrate how you can kind of think through a matchup after you've lost it and try and make adjustments for the future, because in these 2 games, 2 matches that were pretty decisive, emphatic losses the first time around, with a few crucial adjustments, are able to be flipped completely and turn into wins. Thank you so much for watching. My name is HomesliceHenry, and this is More Slice Henry, my second channel where I post content primarily to do with the Pokemon Go Championship Series, educational content about Pokemon Go PvP, and in general, just any content that I feel doesn't really fit on my main channel. If you enjoyed today's video, consider dropping a like on the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.